Little did I think I would be on the stage of the same school where I had my roots in, right? Speaking to all of you about dogs. Out of all the things out there, I'm talking about dogs. So there is a famous saying that dogs do speak, but only to those who know how to listen. Now this urge to listen is probably the reason why I'm here today, right? And I'm going to tell you more about that in a bit. So dogs have had a very instrumental role in my life. You know, they've played such a big role in major events of my life, whether it's career changes, whether it's shaping me into a more responsible person, whether it's making the little boy into a man, or even finding love, right? So dogs have really had quite a lot of meaning in my life. But it wasn't always this way. Believe it or not, when I was a kid, I was terribly afraid of dogs, so very scared. You know, I grew up in a very conservative South Indian Brahmin household. Dog, rabies, dog will bite, right? Run away the moment you see a dog. Oh, street dog, you will get infection. I grew up in that kind of an environment. And, you know, going close to a dog was close to, I mean, you never do that. And I remember when in my native home in Chennai, we had a dog, and this was my neighbor's dog. And the moment I would see the dog, I would run, jump up on the ledge of the window and just be there, sometimes even for an hour. Because that lady just wouldn't take her dog in, and she'd say, he's friendly, he's friendly. But for me, it was quite scary of an experience. So that's where I was. But somewhere along the way, things changed. I've always been a very introverted person, you know. I find it very hard to make conversation. I mean, being on the stage, I don't know how I'm doing it right now, but I've always been very introverted, very shy. So in school, I found it a little difficult to make friends. You wouldn't believe it, my mom would actually have to come and make friends for me. That's how introverted I was. So I was the shy kid, and in school, I managed to befriend a dog. Don't ask me how, huh? So there was just a dog in the bus stop, and I started feeding this dog because I felt that this dog was quite malnourished, and I genuinely felt bad. So on the bus stop of Delhi Public School, Bangalore South, there was this white malnourished dog who I used to feed. And because my mom used to pack bread, butter, jam almost every day for lunch, I would feed her that. And of course, I named her Jam. So I would feed Jam every day. And what was surprising to me, this shy, introverted kid in the bus stop, all alone by himself, feeding dogs, suddenly had others around him and trying to make conversation with him. Now, I couldn't ever think of making conversation with someone new, but now something magical happened. The fact that I had a dog next to me, people would talk to me. They asked me, is this your dog? How old is he? Is it a he or a she? Why did you name her Jam? And all these things. And I started to feel good because something that I couldn't do otherwise, the dog helped. Right? So that's really where my journey into dogs began. Right? And what started off with Jam started to happen with every street dog. My God, you see a dog on the street, oh, I want to feed him. I see someone with a dog, let's go meet him, let's go pet him. You know, and this behavior got quite appalling for my parents, you know. There was this one time where I got a puppy back home from the street. My mom had gone for her evening walk, and I would feed the puppy, and then she walks in and I'm trying to hide the puppy. And my mom said, what are you doing? It's either you or the dog. I'm sure everyone's heard that. Right? And of course, you know, with a heavy heart, I had named this dog as well. So I named him Jordan because I found him close to a basketball court. So I took Jordan and I dropped him back wherever, and with a heavy heart I came back. But since that day, the demand was on. You know, the seed was planted into my head. I need a dog. Right? So every day, there wasn't a day that went by where I wouldn't ask my parents for a dog. Finally, on the 1st of January 2013, magic came into my life. Cleo, she's a dog who's very close to my heart. She's my first own pet, I would say. Little golden retriever girl, very shy and timid, very much like someone else I know. So Cleo comes into my life and we become inseparable. But now Cleo has to go for a walk at 6:30 in the morning. I don't like to wake up at 6:30. My mom has tried for years and years and years. No, I don't want to wake up. But suddenly, this dog, Cleo, worked her magic. And all of a sudden, I'm up at 6, maybe 5:30 every day to take care of Cleo. Cleo needed her grooming rituals. I had to brush her, because animals don't speak. You'll have to kind of read between the lines quite a lot. So I had to brush her, see if she's ill, take care of her. And of course, my parents would say, your responsibility, huh? You wanted the dog, take care of the dog. So I started looking after Cleo. It instilled a great sense of responsibility in me. And I'm really grateful for that. I wouldn't be here if not for that. So that was Cleo. And soon with Cleo, I started building a very strong relationship. With little to no friends, Cleo was my everything. So everything I did had Cleo. So if I go to the grocery store, I take Cleo. If I'm going to meet a friend, I take Cleo. So Cleo became such an important part of my life. And somewhere along the way, in the midst of this relationship, of course, I watched all those YouTube videos and all of that, and I learned to train her. Training in the standard sense. Sit, down, stay. Of course, what everyone knows about training. And in the process, I built quite a strong relationship with Cleo. When I would walk Cleo on the streets, I'd have people coming up to say, "Sir, is this your dog? Who trained your dog?" And then suddenly I'd have this puff of air come into my chest and I'd say, "It was me," right? And this news spread like wildfire. And before I knew it, I had people wanting me to train their dog. I have not studied anything at dog training at that point. Right, so I said, okay, if this means I get to spend time with more than one dog, of course. And that's how I started dog walking. Right, so I would go home and I would charge people 400 rupees for a month. How cool is that? That's an awesome dog walker. Right, so everyone wanted the service. 400 rupees for a month, I'll walk your dog every single day. And that's my hobby. And I started doing this in school. And I was walking a bunch of dogs, and I loved it. It was brilliant. And then one fine day, I was walking dogs, and I was walking past a pet store. And someone associated with that pet store saw me and said, "Are you a dog walker?" I said, kind of. He said, "Why don't you walk dogs for us? I'm going to give you 3,000 rupees a month. You're going to have to give us 500 bucks from that." I said, okay. Yeah. So that's where it became into an income source, pocket money, if you could call it that. So there I started to walk dogs, and I would walk dogs every day whenever I get my free time. Somewhere along the way, the walking became into training, because at that time, I'm sure you've heard of the dog whisperer, Caesar Milan, right? So I'd watch that on TV, and I'm like, I can train them, and I take the dogs out, and I try a whole lot of things, which I now realize were probably not the best things. So I started to train dogs informally, without any certification. And then I realized that everything I did for the dog would actually go to waste the very next day. Because whatever I tried with the dog, the next day, the pet parent wouldn't be able to do themselves. And there was this notion in society that, hey, trainer comes home, trainer has to train your dog and then leave. Right? That's what a trainer does. He comes, trains your dog and leaves. But little did people realize that dogs are a part of the family. And I can train that dog all I want. But it's not going to be the same unless you put in the effort yourself. And this was quite alarming for me. I got into this for the passion of dogs, and I realized I had to teach the owners. I didn't sign up for this, man. I don't want to train people. I'm not a people person. I'm a dog person. And I had kind of a down moment at that time, because this really meant a lot to me. It was a big hobby. So at that time, I was sitting in a room alone with Cleo, and I don't know what came over me, and I just thought, people show their best versions to their dogs. right? You might see a very annoyed person out there on the street, but the moment he goes home to his dog, he lightens up. All the stresses in the world just vanish in a matter of seconds. And I said, that's magic. Again, that's what Cleo does. So the magic that Cleo gave into my life, every dog can give into every person's life. It's just about making people open their eyes to it. And now all of a sudden, dog training or people training didn't seem all that intimidating to me. So there I set forth with a goal, with a mission to help every pet parent possible and possibly change every dog's life for the better. I wanted dogs to live the best life. I had all sorts of dreams, right? So that's where it began. Now from there, of course, I was in school and then I went into college. And at that time, once we were done with school, the options were quite limited. It wasn't actually limited, but coming from a very conservative background, it was either medical, it was either engineering, or it was law. I had these three options. So of course, I picked the easiest. I picked engineering, and I went to college. I studied mechanical engineering, training dogs as a hobby. So as I would do this, my thirst for knowledge also grew. So I started to do a bunch of courses. I realized there are courses on dog training and behavior. And as weird as that might sound, there are even theoretical and online courses. I said, let me sign up for everything. So I did a whole bunch of courses. I started to volunteer at shelters, work with rescues, and I also started to volunteer at pet clinics and pet stores. So that my experience grew, and by the time I was done with engineering, I had done something that my parents didn't know of. I had secretly applied to a university in the US that gives you degrees on canine behavior. Can you believe that? So with all the digging, I found this place and I applied to the university. And when my parents found out, of course, I had a lot of explaining to do. When I finished my engineering, I was quite good at academics. I didn't have that much of a problem. I would just study and get the marks. So I got placed into two very good companies, right? Two multinationals. And I had the option of joining either. So for my parents, you have to understand where they came from. For them, it was, hey, you've got a great job. That's the path you should be taking. So when I presented the idea of going abroad to study dog behavior, they were quite shocked. So after a lot of back and forth, teenage, back and forth and negotiations with my parents, they said, give it a shot. And then I put in all the efforts. I applied for the universities, I got an admission, I even got a scholarship. But in the last stage, my visa was denied, right? And my visa got denied, and after my visa got denied, I said, okay, my hopes are gone, no problem. But very quickly, the very pet store owner that saw me walking dogs said, why don't you start an establishment here yourself? I said, of course. And I took a big risk, I plummeted into it, and that's the birth of The Urban Pet, which is a pet store and a vet clinic and a grooming center, which I ran for 5 whole years. Now through those 5 years, I met so many people, I met a lot of dogs, had a lot of wonderful experiences, but even there, although my experience grew, I felt that something was missing, right? And I felt that the way dog training was being done today was wrong, right? We are so focused on getting the dog to listen to us, right? But we don't listen enough to the dog, right? So that's when I decided to take a step back from my very successful pet store venture, which sells products, and decided to dive entirely into the world of dogs to the core, right? And that was the birth of Divine Dogs. Through Divine Dogs, I met a beautiful dog, Sarah, who actually was supposed to be with me here today, but couldn't make it. And I met Sarah's parent, who is my wife today. So dogs have led me to some of the most beautiful experiences. So today, Divine Dogs aims at providing rich, deep spiritual experiences to people through their dogs. Now, if I told someone a dog is spiritual, of course, dog spelled backward is God, that's a different thing. But if I told someone dogs are spiritual, they'd be like, what? But at the core of it, dogs bring out some of the best in us. And dogs have helped me break boundaries in terms of my confidence, have made me make these big shifts in life. And along with that, have also helped me find love, right? So today I'm married, I'm happy. I live with a pack of 12 dogs in a village. Dream life for me. And I travel, I take my dogs to schools, to special education centers, to old age homes, and I spread the love, the message of love, which dogs have been giving me their whole life. And I've also been able to change the way people look at the dog training career, right? This is no longer a standard blue collar job where you come and teach the dog to sit down, stay. This is about helping you build a connect and building yourself up as an individual through your dog. Thank you so much, and I'm truly honored to be here on the stage. Thank you.